Welcome to NTD News Today. Here are today's top stories. The U.S. and the U.K. reach a new agreement on drug pricing, a deal U.S. officials say will rebalance pharmaceutical trade and boost innovation. Efforts to end the war in Ukraine continue, with President Zelenskyy saying difficult issues remain as Ukrainian leaders tour Europe and a U.S. envoy travels to Moscow. The man accused of killing UnitedHealth CEO is back in court today. His attorneys want key evidence tossed out. The Northeast and Midwest brace for another winter storm, this one coming on the heels of a post-Thanksgiving blast of snow. After Black Friday, online spending broke records. Find out what's expected for today's Cyber Monday sales and what products are likely to sell the most.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Today is Monday, December 1st. I'm Stephanie Cox. Major trade news today. The Trump administration says it has reached an agreement in principle with the UK on pharmaceutical pricing. The deal is part of the new UK-US economic prosperity deal announced by President Trump and UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Under the agreement, the UK will reverse years of declining National Health Service spending on innovative medicines. It will raise the net price it pays for new drugs by 25%. Britain also committed to limiting rebate demands. In return, the US will exempt UK-made pharmaceuticals, ingredients, and medical technology from Section 232 tariffs. It will also avoid launching tariff investigations tied to UK pricing practices during Trump's term. Officials say the agreement is designed to correct long-standing trade imbalances and strengthen investment and drug innovation in both countries. Meanwhile, tensions between the United States and Venezuela are escalating. President Trump says he spoke with President Nicolas Maduro, while U.S. lawmakers demand answers on alleged follow-up strikes in the Caribbean.
President Trump confirmed yesterday he had a phone call with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro as Washington intensifies military and diplomatic pressure on Caracas.
The New York Times reported that you had a phone call with Maduro. Did you?
I don't want to comment on it. The answer is yes.
And can you tell us a little bit
No,
about
I can't do that.
Mr. President, would you say it went well?
I wouldn't say it went well or badly. It was a phone call.
The news comes as the Trump administration closes Venezuelan airspace, warning airlines and pilots and drug dealers and human traffickers to avoid the region.
Mr. President, on Venezuela, can you tell us more about why the airspace above Venezuela should be considered closed?
Because we consider Venezuela to be not a very friendly country. They sent millions of people, really, and probably a number in excess of that. And a lot of those people shouldn't be in our country, from jails, from gangs, from drug dealers.
The Federal Aviation Administration earlier this month warned airlines of heightened military activity in the region, sparking several canceled flights to Venezuela.
Does your warning mean that an airstrike is imminent, or should we not read it that way?
Don't read anything into it.
Tensions have surged following more than 20 U.S. strikes on alleged drug smuggling boats since September. The administration says these operations have killed more than 80 people designated as narco-terrorists. But lawmakers from both parties are now demanding answers after reports that U.S. forces carried out a follow-up strike on survivors of an attack in September. War Secretary Pete Hegseth has denied ordering any follow-up strikes, calling reports fabricated and inflammatory.
I don't know anything about it. He said he did not say that, and I believe him 100%.
You don't know if there was
You're talking about the two men?
The second strike to kill the two men.
No, he said he didn't do it. He said he never said it.
Venezuela is now accusing the U.S. of murder, acknowledging for the first time that some of the dead were Venezuelan nationals. In Caracas yesterday, Maduro re-emerged in public for the first time in days. He appeared at an annual specialty coffee awards event and avoided any direct mention of the crisis. The unusually highly public president has not been seen for days, leading to speculation about his whereabouts.
And a critical round of diplomacy over the weekend, with U.S. and Ukrainian officials pushing for a framework to end the war. President Trump says progress is being made.
They're going along, and they're going along well. We want to stop people from being killed. Doesn't have much to do with us, but I'd like to see if we can save a lot of souls.
Do you want, to put Putin, here is my
deadline for you to...
No, I don't have a deadline. I have a deadline when the war is over. And hopefully the war is going to be over. 27,000 people killed last week. 27,000 over the last 3 or 4 weeks. 27,000 people killed. That war should end.
The U.S.-Ukraine talks unfolded yesterday at a private club near Miami. Ukraine entered the meeting facing intensifying pressure at home, including a major corruption probe and widespread power outages from Russian strikes. The talks also came as Russian forces continue to push along the front lines. Secretary of State Marco Rubio told reporters yesterday the session with the Ukrainian team was productive, but work remains in the search for a peace deal. Rubio says the U.S. now has to bring Russia on board and find a middle ground between Moscow's and Kyiv's goals. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has more.
We want the Ukrainian people to emerge from this war, not just to rebuild their country, but to build it back in a way that will be stronger and more prosperous than it's ever been.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio giving a press conference on Sunday afternoon after meeting with Ukrainian representatives in Florida. Also at the meeting were Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. Sunday's meeting sets the stage for talks with Russia. President Vladimir Putin says Moscow is ready for serious discussions and that the outlines reached by the US and Ukraine could serve as a basis for agreements to end the fighting. According to Rubio, the US and Ukraine made good progress during Sunday's meeting and during an initial summit in Geneva last weekend. But he acknowledges that Moscow still has to agree to the plans made between Washington and Kiev.
And that'll continue later this week when Mr. Witkoff travels to Moscow, although we've also been in touch in varying degrees with the Russian side, but we have a pretty good understanding of their views as well. So much work remains.
He highlighted that the goal is not just to end the fighting, but to make sure that peace remains and that Ukraine can be prosperous in the future. A big part of that is to make sure Ukraine has security guarantees from the West. Ukraine's former lead negotiator, Andrew Yermak, resigned this week amid a corruption scandal. The Ukrainian side sent its former defense minister, Rustem Umerov, to lead Sunday's negotiations. Umerov expressed his gratitude towards Washington for supporting Kiev's goals.
We were discussing about the future of Ukraine. We discussed all the important matters that are important for Ukraine, for Ukrainian people, and U.S. was super supportive.
The next step of the peace process is for Witkoff to travel to Russia. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Continuing with talks to end the war in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy says some tough issues still have to be resolved. Zelenskyy and other Ukrainian officials are touring Europe to rally allies. Zelenskyy is in Paris currently to rally support from President Emmanuel Macron and will head to Ireland tomorrow. Zelenskyy took to X saying, quote, "We had a very productive discussion on key priorities with our European friends." President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, is in Moscow today to brief the Kremlin. Witkoff will meet Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow, and Ukraine's defense minister attended an EU counterparts meeting in Brussels today. During the meeting, the EU foreign policy chief said it could be a pivotal week for diplomacy on Ukraine. NATO's most senior military officer recently said the U.S.-led military alliance could consider a preemptive strike, but Russia labeled the comment as an attempt to move towards escalation. NATO's military committee chair told the Financial Times that NATO was looking at stepping up its response to hybrid warfare from Moscow. He said a preemptive strike could be considered a defensive action. The Russian Foreign Ministry called the comments a deliberate attempt to undermine efforts to overcome the Ukrainian crisis. We'll be keeping you updated there. Up ahead, we've got expert advice on letting this festive season nourish your relationships with friends, family, and coworkers. Dr. Crawford joins us in studio. And lawmakers are working to prevent young students from being influenced by the Chinese Communist Party. A vote this week aims to withhold funding from schools that accept financial support from the regime. Those stories. Welcome back. While this really can feel like the most wonderful time of the year, with friends and family coming together, it can also be challenging at times to keep things merry and bright amongst your nearest and dearest. And joining us for insight and some helpful tips and advice is psychologist and CEO of Crawford Clinics, Dr. Crawford. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
So good to see you in person.
Thanks.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, this is a very special time of year, and we've all got high hopes. And it should also be a time that really strengthens those bonds that are so important to us in our whole lifelong health and happiness. But this is the time when we run into trouble, usually, when we're all up and close with each other. So what do you recommend to just prepare ourselves for that? Any potential rifts that may form?
Absolutely. I think the more the time we can journal and process in advance, so we call it free writing, where you just let yourself process anything that you may not even know could be a trigger. The best way to find your trigger is ahead of time, if possible, so that you're not blindsided in the moment with those people. So you plan ahead, write everything out, so that then you can think, okay, what could be a landmine that I need to be aware of before I walk into that situation so I can try to avoid it.
And the trouble is, okay, I love this idea, so present, right? And that is a skill in itself, and you're training yourself really. But sometimes you just can't control something in the dynamic. Something goes wrong. What do you recommend for helping repair things or helping calm yourself down?
Yeah. First, one, it's super normal. So a lot of people feel very devastated. It feels very overwhelming. But if we can do 6 slow, deep breaths, downregulate your central nervous system, helps your brain go out of fight or flight and back into like that normal space of this is okay, it'll pass. And then remind yourself the things you love about this person. And so the brain will automatically either vilify or idealize people. So you switch your brain back into what is good about this person. So we just had this situation where a family fought over a political issue and they decided to step back and think about, but I know that your heart is to protect the vulnerable, let's say. Right. Stop making it about the political or the topic and make it about the heart below and the love and the care that you know is good about the person, and then go and just hug and say, I love you, and then drop the topic. Don't try to keep convincing them. Just try to remind yourself, this is what I love about you as a person. And when you do that, then it helps negative sentiment override switch into positive sentiment override.
Oh, great. You know, this also brings up a question for me. Do you recommend taking any specific action beyond that to try to mend things between people, either if you've had a conflict or you're seeing others having a conflict around you? Yeah, a lot of times you really do have to make a conscious choice to get out of, I feel unsafe, I feel defensive, and decide this person is good for 90% of the population. This person is probably good. I'm just feeling unsafe or unheard, or something is icky right now. But if you can go to them and say, I love your heart for people. I love your heart for family. I love who you are. And then just reconcile, hey, irrespective of that topic, I want you to know that you're important to me. And if it's safe, a good hug, because it releases oxytocin, and that's really beneficial to the system. Lovely. And lastly, staying on the topic of family, often we know what might trigger others, but it can also be hard to make sure that we don't trigger others necessarily. So what do you recommend for either preparing for that or managing that in the moment?
Yeah, so in the moment, I mean, we get blindsided and you don't know what's gonna trigger the person. And so all of a sudden they are triggered. And if you can remind yourself, this is not personal, it's not about me. This is about them and some area in their life. Remind yourself of the identity of the person, not the political or the religious or the situational variable that you think it's about. It's not the baked potatoes that are burning. It's the relational equity that you want to protect. When you switch that and you remind yourself who they are and who they are to you, it helps you not keep digging that ditch, but to repair quicker.
Love that. And that really does show that it can be a strengthening, sincerely strengthening time for a family. And for anyone, friends you may be around and having those conflicts with. But in terms of managing your own energy and also managing others' expectations of you and where your limits are, do you have any thoughts about how to set that up in a way that feels elegant and doesn't catch anyone off guard?
Brilliant question. So most of the time we go into family events haphazard, right? Like we're late, we're picking up this ingredient on the way. And so if you can time block ahead, that you get some quiet time. meditation, go on a walk, some deep breathing, downregulate your own central nervous system, get some emotional bandwidth for yourself so that you are more gracious. You can laugh things off. You can be a little bit more generous in your responses instead of like hairline trigger of the wrong look and somebody is going to get it from you, right? Like we need to go in with a lot more bandwidth so that we can be more generous to others if they're not taking care of their emotional capacity, that you can offer that buffer, and it really just softens the whole family environment.
And while this is a time for coming together and being together over a long period of time, often, there are plenty of people and plenty of times for each of us where we're not with others or with our beloved at this time. And we can see others out there coming together, and it can bring up some feelings and emotions for people naturally. What do you recommend for that? Managing it within yourself and also helping others around you if you notice them suffering.
Absolutely. So I have moved a lot, and one of the best things I've found is, one, you find a community group. So if it's like a local adventure group or a church community, something where you can be plugged in into a built-in community really helps. Secondly, areas of service. If I don't know somebody, I will usually volunteer so that then I look like I have a role, even though I don't know anybody in the room. So it helps me be less self-conscious, right? And then I am forward-facing. I'm thinking of others instead of self-conscious, thinking about myself. So with our clients at Crawford Clinics, we'll usually suggest, hey, where are you serving? Where are you plugging in? Where are you being intentional? Because human nature is to think, what are people doing for me? They're not being outgoing, they're not nice, etc. Instead of all of us are all kind of self-conscious. We all don't like being the stranger walking in the room. So if you can go in with a heart to serve, I mean, there's beautiful opportunities this time of year. There's homeless shelters. You can help serve and volunteer for kids. There's brilliant ways to connect, and you're more likely to meet people who have similar values because their heart is obviously service-oriented as well.
For sure, that sounds like a really beautiful way to spend the time and so meaningful. And while there is this period of time where people are taking time off to spend with their beloved, often many people have to work as well, or get to work, we can say. And at those times, what do you recommend for people who are in the workplace and needing to create that feeling of connection with their coworkers who they do already spend a lot of time with?
Absolutely. I think little gifts are so brilliant. Trying to find out, at Crawford Clinics, we do our gifts assessment. So like, do you love words? Do you love quality time? Do you love thoughtful little gifts? So if you do know that in advance, you can tailor it. And so we'll find out what our team likes so that you're really tailoring your thoughtfulness, because we only have so much margin during the holidays to give. And so I want to be strategic. So knowing someone's words, I might just write a quick note, and I'll notice like for probably a year that person keeps that note on their desk, right? Because that words mean something. To another person, it might not be as valuable, but giving a really thoughtful gift to that person. Something that's low stakes. I'm not asking anything from you. I just want you to see that you're valuable to me.
And that's what it's all about, this connection, this noticing our place within the grander scheme of things, which all of us are, I believe, truly connected. But it's that skill that brings it out. And I so appreciate you coming here today to help us all understand how to better manage that and create that within our own communities and our own workplace and friendship groups. Dr. Crawford, thank you so much, and happy festive season. Merry Christmas ahead of time.
Merry Christmas.
All right, and next up, fallout over the tragic shooting of 2 National Guard members continues to unfold. President Trump says the U.S. will continue to tighten immigration laws, and there could be no asylum for some nations for a long time. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that, plus reactions from Attorney General Pam Bondi and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
President Trump told reporters yesterday that his administration could pause asylum admissions for an extended period.
No time limit, but it could be a long time.
Trump was referring to the 19 nations his administration designates as countries of identified concern when asked which nationals might face asylum restrictions.
Let me just tell you something. We don't want those people. Does that make sense? You know why we don't want them? Because many have been no good, and they shouldn't be in our country.
What do you mean by those people? Can you
The
clarify?
people from different countries that are not friendly to us and countries that are out of control themselves.
The president also addressed his earlier comments about possibly revoking citizenship from individuals who already obtained it.
We have criminals that came into our country and they were naturalized maybe through a Biden or somebody that didn't know what they were doing. If I have the power to do it, I'm not sure that I do, but if I do, I would denaturalize absolutely.
His remarks come after Citizenship and Immigration Services halted all asylum decisions until it says it can ensure that every immigrant is vetted to the maximum degree possible. Attorney General Pam Bondi criticized the vetting of arrivals under the Operation Allies Welcome program, the pathway used by the Afghan suspect in the D.C. shooting, speaking on Fox News.
They did not do biometrics. They did not do social media. They did very little, if minimal, vetting on all of these people. And now to take a step back, we have a 1.5 million backlog of people that have come into our country.
Bondi says radicalization is happening inside the U.S. as well.
We know that this shooter who shot our National Guardsman in D.C. the day before Thanksgiving, he was radicalized. You're going to hear a lot more about that. And these people should not have been in our country.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was asked why the suspect, who previously served in a CIA-trained strike force, was not fully vetted. Although he entered the U.S. in 2021, he wasn't granted asylum until April of this year, speaking on NBC News.
The vetting process, Kristen, happens when the person comes into the country, and Joe Biden completely did not vet any of these individuals, did not vet this individual, waited until he got into the United States, and then that application for asylum was opened under the Joe Biden administration when he was the president in the White House and allowed that to go forward with the information that they provided. That's the Biden administration's responsibility.
President Trump says he plans to honor the 2 National Guard members shot in Washington and that he has invited their parents to the White House.
I've already suggested it. I said, when you're ready, because that's a tough thing, come to the White House, we're going to honor Sarah. And likewise with Andrew, recover or not, we're going to honor her.
West Virginia National Guard members Sarah Beckstrom and Andrew Wolf were shot in an alleged ambush the day before Thanksgiving. Beckstrom died the next day from her injuries. Wolf remains in critical condition. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Thank you, Daniel. Next, more states are redistricting. Indiana House lawmakers released a draft of a congressional map. It could lead to 2 more Republican seats in Congress. The map would put the GOP on top in all 9 of the state's congressional districts. The biggest change would come in Marion County, where state capital Indianapolis is located. The county would be split into 4 separate districts and dilute the Democrats' power there. The map still needs approval. In the Indiana State Senate, Republican President Pro Tem Roderick Bray opposes the new map. Other Republicans have said they prefer flipping districts rather than redrawing the map. The White House has been heavily involved in the effort. Vice President J.D. Vance has visited the state twice. A vote is expected in the next 2 weeks. Turning Point USA is planning a rally in favor of the map. And First Lady Melania Trump and Second Lady Usha Vance are making holiday care packages with military spouses at Joint Base Andrews. Let's take a look. And I believe we'll...
It is wonderful to be here at Joint Base Andrews. It is an honor to begin this holiday season with all of you. 12 days ago, I visited MCAS, New River, and Camp Lejeune to spend time with our brave Marines, military, connected students, and their families. I wanted to thank the team here at St. Andrews for supporting that important visit. Today, we are surrounded by people whose strength is often quiet, but always powerful. We speak regularly of the bravery of our service members, and we should. But we must also illuminate the bravery of those who walk beside them, the spouses who carry the weight of family life on top of their own dreams. Your lives require a resilience that few outside the military can understand. Moves that make you to take across the country and around the world. Holidays spent with an empty chair at the table, Milestones celebrated over screen because the person you love is thousands of miles away. And yet, through every transition, every deployment, every homecoming, you continue to show grace, determination, and unbreakable spirit. You keep life steady for your children. You manage homes, careers, finances, and schedules, all while giving comfort to your family. You carry this extra responsibility because you love someone who has sworn to serve. Today, we are here with the American Red Cross, which has stood beside military families for generations. The Red Cross supports our service members, veterans, caregivers, and survivors across the globe. We are grateful for all they do to support and strengthen our military families. As we celebrate this season of hope, I encourage everyone to also take care of yourselves. Your well-being is vital, not just for your families, but for your own future. Your journey matters, your voice matters, and your strength continue to inspire us all. Every package built here today is built with American values. Each represents liberty, love, community, and honor. Each is delivered with heart and love, the foundation of our great nation. May this Christmas bring peace to your homes, safety to those who are deployed, and gratitude in the hearts of every American who thanks you for your service and sacrifice. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
And there you see First and Second Ladies at the Joint Base Andrews speaking to troops. Melania Trump there. They were both there to help prepare care packages for deployed troops. Meanwhile, the White House is officially decked out for Christmas. First Lady Melania Trump personally selected this year's theme, Home is Where the Heart Is. It's the First Lady's 5th year shaping the holiday look at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. She says the decor celebrates American generosity, patriotism, and gratitude. This year's display includes over 50 Christmas trees, Melania Trump's signature wreaths with red bows outside the windows, and the official White House Christmas tree, an 18-foot fir in the Blue Room. In the East Room, the patriotic decor honors America's upcoming 250th anniversary. The Green Room focuses on family fun with games and Lego portraits. The Red Room highlights her Fostering the Future initiative, decorated with thousands of butterflies. And in the Blue Room, this year's theme honors Gold Star families. Blue, gold, and ivory decor and custom 3D printed ornaments show every state's bird and flower, and gold stars symbolize sacrifice. And in the state dining room, a massive gingerbread house features the South Portico, built from more than 100 pounds of gingerbread dough. Public Christmas tours begin tomorrow. And lawmakers are returning to Washington, D.C. this week. The House is teeing up a vote meant to discourage U.S. schools from taking grants from the Chinese Communist Party. In many cases, these grants are used to ingrain the Communist Party's ideology into the minds of young students. NTD's Melina Weisskopf reports.
House lawmakers are working to prevent young students from being influenced by the Chinese Communist Party. The Education Committee reported earlier this year that Confucius classrooms have infiltrated more than 500 American K-12 schools.
The CCP Confucius classrooms pose a national security risk, a geopolitical security risk, and an academic security risk. To combat these threats, the committee...
The chairman described Confucius classrooms as CCP propaganda outposts. Many lawmakers have raised concerns that these types of classrooms are disguised as cultural exchange, but that the Chinese Communist Party has other goals.
The CCP doesn't do these things with a charitable intent. The entire purpose of the programs is they expect something in return, control over curriculum, and thereby influence over the young minds that are subject to it.
Congressman Kiley's bill, called Protect Our Kids, would allow the government to withhold tax dollars from elementary through high schools that have financial support from China. It will be voted on this week.
It is unacceptable that American school districts have entered into financial agreements with entities tied to the CCP, an adversary of the United States, a regime with one of the worst human rights records in modern history.
Lawmakers recently passed legislation to tackle the issue at the college level. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
A federal appeals court rules that President Trump's appointee, Alina Habba, can't serve as the U.S. Attorney for New Jersey. The Trump administration pushed for Habba to remain in the role after her interim appointment. The court said she needed Senate confirmation. Challenges to Habba's tenure came after people she charged with federal crimes tried to block the charges. They argued she wasn't lawfully in the role after the 120-day interim term had passed. Habba has said she was fighting to stay in the position on behalf of all federal prosecutor candidates who have been denied Senate hearings. Other Trump nominees for federal prosecutor have also faced legal challenges. A federal judge dismissed the high-profile cases against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James for a similar reason, involving the interim U.S. Attorney for East Virginia. And New York prosecutors have said they stand ready to retry a former Manhattan delicatessen worker for kidnapping and murder. The man's conviction and the 1979 slaying of 6-year-old Itan Paz was overturned 4 months ago by a federal appeals court. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office says the evidence supports the renewal of its prosecution of Pedro Hernandez on the same charges as before. Hernandez was found guilty in 2017 of kidnapping and murdering Pats, who had vanished nearly 40 years earlier. Pats was walking alone for the first time to a school bus stop 2 blocks from his home in Manhattan's Soho neighborhood. Hernandez was sentenced to a prison term of 25 years to life and remains in custody. The boy was never found. He became one of the first missing children whose face was printed on the sides of milk cartons to publicize his disappearance. No respite for some of the areas still recovering from a disruptive post-Thanksgiving storm. A new winter storm is racing out of the plains toward the northeast. Forecasters warn the system will spread snow, ice, and heavy rain from the central plains into the Midwest and interior Northeast today through tomorrow. The National Weather Service says the storm will bring hazardous snow and ice to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast as the first big winter storm of the season moves in. In New York, Lewis County is under a winter weather advisory with up to 8 inches of snow expected. Travelers have been urged to use caution as snow-covered roads and restricted visibility are likely. And after the snow and ice, a surge of Arctic air will settle in, dropping temperatures to their lowest levels of the season in parts of the central and eastern U.S. Meanwhile, up ahead, Hong Kong's deadliest fire in decades has sparked tension after police briefly detained a student. What we know about the incident. In the Honduran elections, the vote counts are still close. The outcome could determine the future of U.S.-Honduran relations. Those stories after this. I'm Stephanie Cox, and this is World Watch. The death toll from Hong Kong's deadliest fire in decades has climbed to at least 151. Investigators continue to probe into how the blaze spread so rapidly. The latest information from authorities points to substandard renovation materials. More than 40 people are still missing as police continue to sweep the 7 towers of Wong Fu Court. Mourners lined up yesterday for nearly a mile to lay white flowers and notes of grief outside the burned-out complex. The fire has sparked tension after police briefly detained a student who circulated flyers demanding an independent investigation and greater oversight. Hong Kong's South China Morning Post says 2 others have also since been arrested on suspicion of seditious intent. The Chinese regime has increasingly suppressed Hong Kong's freedoms in recent years. The Chinese Communist Party's National Security Office warned individuals over reigniting what they call political chaos, referring to large-scale pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong in 2019. Such protests have been a distant memory since Beijing imposed a national security law on Hong Kong in 2020. And the death toll from catastrophic flooding across Southeast Asia continues to climb, with Indonesia reporting the largest devastation. Rescue teams are struggling to reach isolated communities after landslides washed out roads, cut off access to entire districts. Aerial footage shows entire neighborhoods submerged or swept away as heavy rain, fueled by a rare tropical storm, pounded the region for days. Officials warn the death tolls could continue to rise as search teams work to reach people still unaccounted for in remote or flooded areas. In Honduras, the candidate backed by President Trump is in the lead in the country's presidential election. Nasri Asfura holds 40% of the vote, while his closest contender is at about 39.78%. Votes are still being counted. The next president is set to rule from 2026 through 2030. On social media, President Trump has said he supports Asfura. He said he can work with him to counter drug trafficking. Trump also threatened to pull U.S. funding if Asfura doesn't win. And European election observers are commenting on a weekend parliamentary election in Kyrgyzstan. They said it was run efficiently, but was stifled by a restrictive campaign environment and increasing restrictions on freedoms. Allies of Kyrgyzstan's president won the vast majority of seats, cementing his power. He's clamped down on media and opposition. Russia, the U.S., and neighboring China are all contending for influence in the Central Asian country. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe said authorities exercised excessive control over allowing candidates to run for office in that country, authorities in that country. They added that fear of retribution for political activity dampened voter interest. Meanwhile, Spanish police said they had broken up the country's first known cell tied to what they're calling a white supremacist group called the Base, a designated terrorist group in the European Union. They arrested three and jailed a group leader in the eastern province of Castellon. The Base is a neo-Nazi group founded in 2018 in the United States. It promotes an ideology that seeks to hasten the collapse of democratic institutions through violent attacks. Police said the suspects were highly radicalized and had conducted parliamentary training. They had also expressed readiness to carry out selective attacks and used social media to recruit sympathizers. Meanwhile, Luigi Mangione is due in state court today. He's accused of killing UnitedHealth CEO Brian Thompson about a year ago. His attorneys are seeking to have evidence thrown out of court. Those items include a 9mm handgun that prosecutors say matches the one used in the killing and a notebook. Prosecutors say he described his intent in it to, quote, whack a health insurance executive. His lawyers argue investigators illegally seized them from the 27-year-old's backpack without a warrant. Prosecutors disagree and have agreed to a hearing on the matter. Mangione also faces a separate federal death penalty case. And in college football, an exciting weekend of action capped by a potential shifting of power in the SEC. NTD's Dave Martin joins us to discuss. And Carlsberg creates the world's smallest beer. The company details the message behind the bottle after this. Welcome back, and now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, so much going on in sports, well, truly, at this time of year. But let's start with college football. Ole Miss coach Lane Kiffin has left for the same job at LSU. Does that surprise you?
You know, not really. I mean, this was actually pretty much a rumor the entire last week, or if not the past month, that Kiffin was leaving for the Florida job or the LSU job. I mean, both jobs are considered a little bit more prestigious anyway than Ole Miss. It did surprise me that Kiffin's leaving before the season's over because Ole Miss is likely heading to the playoffs. I mean, they're 11-1 this season. Of course, LSU really can't afford to wait until after the season, of course, to make the coaching hire. That would be too late. But Kiffin said his request to coach the team in the playoffs while taking the LSU job was denied, not surprisingly. I mean, before the transfer portal, that would be possible. I'm sure that Ole Miss feared that Kiffin could probably use the time to recruit some of his players with him to LSU. In fact, you got the feeling that this was an acrimonious split. I mean, I don't know the details behind the scenes, that it might not have been pretty. There was a video circulating on social media of Kiffin being escorted to a plane by police as Ole Miss fans were booing him goodbye. In any case, Kiffin gets a 7-year contract worth $12 million a season. Now it's one of the highest paid coaches out there. Ole Miss, meanwhile, has already promoted defensive coordinator Pete Golding to head coach. He will take over immediately as the team heads to the playoffs, most likely.
Okay, and I presume that video being on social media maybe it has not been verified, but it's out there. So
well, it was definitely him anyway.
Oh, okay, all right.
I just couldn't show it here.
I got you.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Let's keep on with college football. The last games before the conference championship weekend. This weekend. What stood out to you?
You know, I would say the biggest one was Texas Longhorns upsetting their rival, Texas A&M, which was undefeated. That was on Friday night. Now, they didn't knock the Aggies out of the playoff picture for sure, but it kept them out of the SEC title game after Georgia and Alabama followed up with wins on Saturday. So now we get Georgia versus Alabama for the SEC title this Saturday. Seems like it's always those two of late. But anyway, I enjoy that though. I also think Ohio State's win over Michigan was pretty big, even though they were favored to do it. You know, to think that Ryan Day's job status was in question maybe by Ohio State fans a year ago after they lost to Michigan for the 4th straight time is kind of amazing. He's now 2-4 against them. Of course, he's got that national title in his pocket. He's won more than 80% of his game hit there. He's had a successful run for sure. So Ohio State now plays Indiana on Saturday. Both of those teams are undefeated. That's for the Big Ten championship. In the Big 12, meanwhile, it'd be Texas Tech versus BYU. And then in the ACC, you've got surprising Duke against Virginia. So conference championship Saturday.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're looking forward to it.
I was going to say, plenty to look forward to.
I'm definitely looking forward to it too. We'll have plenty to talk about that Monday.
Who will you be especially, watching out for?
I think that game, the two I mentioned, those two games that I mentioned, Indiana versus Ohio State, those are the only two undefeated teams that are left. And Alabama versus Georgia, that's just become such a great rivalry in the SEC. So especially those two games.
Okay, we'll check back in about those two.
I will be eyes glued to the TV for that one.
Good. Okay, and let's shift gears to the NFL. The New York Jets won their 3rd game of the season yesterday.
Yeah, it's surprising they played a little more competitive football after trading 2 of their best players at the trade deadline. So the Jets beat the Falcons yesterday 27-24 via a last-second 56-yard field goal. New York is now 3-9 in the season and 3-2 over the past 5 days. I mean, they traded away All-Pros Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner away at the trade deadline a couple weeks ago, and they're still playing well, or they're playing better anyway. Maybe they have nothing to lose. I don't know. They got a new head coach. Sometimes it takes a little while for things to mesh. Elsewhere in the league, Houston Texans won their 4th straight game yesterday. It was a pivotal 20-16 win against Indianapolis. Texas quarterback C.J. Stroud was back from injury after missing the last 3 games, which they incidentally won all 3. Really thanks to their defense. But now the Colts are tied with the Jaguars atop the AFC South. Texans, meanwhile, 1 game behind. Actually, the Texans also have a very good backup quarterback in Davis Mills, who did well in his absence. Now, and also in Seattle, the Seahawks set out the Vikings 26-0. Now, Minnesota has started at quarterback undrafted free agent rookie Max Brosmer. Now, predictably, if you're thrown into something like that as an undrafted free agent rookie, you had a tough time going through 4 interceptions in the loss. Tonight, meanwhile, New England Patriots, who are 10-2, will host the 2-10 New York Giants on Monday Night Football. So 2 teams going in opposite directions at this point.
Okay. Interesting.
Still should be a good game, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Tune in, I'm sure.
I will be. We'll see how that goes.
Might be a little bit late, I suppose.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
This is a little. I do.
Well, you know what? We'll record it. You can watch it later.
No excuses. All right. Thanks so much, Dave.
Thank you.
And next, the Orient Express is now part of a new exhibition in Paris. The installation celebrates the train's history and the beginning of the Art Deco style. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more.
This year marks the 100th anniversary of the 1925 International Exhibition of Decorative Arts and Modern Industries, the event that gave Art Deco its name. A star of the new exhibition in Paris, the Orient Express, with 3 life-size displays of the new train. Architect Maxime Donziac says the design pays tribute to the original while embracing new methods.
Orient Express, in a train, if you don't go on each details, it's a problem. Because the glass is going to vibrate, is going to move. The chairs has to be heavy, but not too much.
Donziac worked with artisans to outfit the new train. Modern amenities make the journey more comfortable and luxurious.
Toilets behind these doors, a real shower, which is huge instead of a lot of place in Paris, because it's 80 centimeters of diameters, with a panel, it's not there, but it's movable to give privacy.
The new train will host 64 guests on a 2 to 4 day journey between Paris and Istanbul, but it's more like a traveling hotel.
You have to entertain them, to feed them, to make them curious, to make them really comfortable. So it's a huge performance.
Beyond the train, the Paris exhibition explores Art Deco's broader influence. Deputy Curator Matthieu Joncher explains.
Art Deco is about simplification of forms, of patterns, of motifs. They are more or less the same motifs as Art Nouveau, like women, animals, or flowers, but they are simpler and geometric.
1925 to 2025, 100 Years of Art Deco runs until April 26, 2026. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Carlsberg has created a 12-millimeter tall bottle of non-alcoholic beer in a bid to create the world's smallest beverage of its kind. The director of corporate affairs at Carlsberg, Sweden, says the creation was about more than size.
So what we wanted to create was a light-hearted icebreaker to get into a serious discussion on what responsible drinking is and what moderation means to people. And what we've been seeing is that people use this as a way to pause and reflect and actually discuss among each other what moderation and responsible drinking means to them.
A specialist glass worker created the tiny bottle for the beverage, while an artist added Carlsberg's signature logo. According to Carlsberg, the miniature beer is the smallest of its kind in the world. Carlsberg is organizing a competition in Stockholm to come up with an even smaller bottle of beer. We'll be keeping you updated on that. Next, Adobe Analytics forecast that consumers will spend $14.2 billion for Cyber Monday. The forecast comes after a record online Black Friday spending. Black Friday spending reached $11.8 billion worth of online sales. Adobe predicts 6.3% more spending than last year's Cyber Monday. Cyber Monday is traditionally seen as the biggest online shopping day for the U.S., and it marks the culmination of the Thanksgiving shopping weekend. Adobe says over half of the online spending on Cyber Monday is expected to be driven by electronics, apparel, and furniture. This year's holiday season has seen retailers become more careful with discounts while also launching early promotions to lock in sales. Artificial intelligence is also playing a bigger role, with retailers using the technology to lure shoppers in and shoppers using AI for price comparison. That's all we have time for this hour, but if you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at news.today@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. Stay with us. We'll be broadcasting the White House press briefing right after this break.